change.
I think we're online, Shirley.
Thank you. Good.
In which case, good afternoon, rather. Welcome to members, officers, the press and public joining the Strategic Development Committee. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to anybody joining us this afternoon online. My name is Rachel Clerk. I'm chair of this afternoon's meeting. Most officers are joining us today via Zoom. Can those joining us online hear me? Okay, I can see some nodding heads and some raised thumbs. That's great news. Thank you. Members in the room, as ever, but perhaps particularly important while we're having a couple of technical issues. When you're speaking, can you please speak clearly and loudly so that the microphone can pick up what you're saying? If you are on Zoom, please mute your microphone if you're not speaking. I'm now going to ask the members of the committee and then the officers to introduce themselves. Colleen.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Farley, Dean Parkway, Glasgow South Councillor.
James.
Yeah, Councillor James Beckles, Custom House Councillor.
Councillor Susan Mulford, East London Councillor.
Thank you. And can I ask officers to introduce themselves in the order in which you appear on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Jane Custance. I'm the Director of Planning and Development. Handing over to James.
Thank you. James Bolt, Senior Development Manager for Newham Council. Hand over to my colleague, Dan.
Dan Legg, Principal Planning Officer here at Newham, and I'll pass over to Chloe.
Thank you. Chloe Toll, Planner at Newham Council. Passing over to Ben.
Ben Hull, Strategic Design Manager at Newham. Over to Vincent.
Vincent, you're on mute.
Apologies, I'm Vincent Healy, the legal advisor.
Thank you. Just to remind members that when a vote is taken, as always, it will be by way of raising our physical hands so that we can capture that on screen. The first item on the agenda is apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Alarm, Councillor McLean, Councillor Morris, and Councillor Starley-Pontin. Those are all the apologies.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the minutes of the meetings held on the 7th of July and the 19th of September for approval. Those are outlined on pages 13 to 20. Are there any matters of ironing or action points coming out of those minutes? In which case, can we agree those are the true record of those meetings? Agreed. Thank you. Item number 4, members are asked to note the advice from the Head of Legal Services on determining planning applications. Is that noted? Noted. Thank you. Next item, requests to address the committee. We've received the following requests to address the committee. I wonder, could the speakers identify themselves when I call out your name? We have apologies, is it Jorge? George Nash, Associate Director from item 6.
Yeah, hi, yeah, George Nash for Hyde Housing for item 6, yeah.
Thank you. And is that pronounced George, did you say?
Yes, George, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Item
you.
number 7, New Willow House, we have Mr. Harrier.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, this is Mr. Harrier, yeah.
Great, thank you. Item number 8, Abbey House, I have Taryn Chima.
Yeah.
That's you. And did you both want to speak for item number 8?
Just with yourself.
Okay, because I think I did have an email earlier from someone. So you're from the applicants, is that right? Was that you? Okay, that's no problem. Thank you. So the usual practice is to have up to 5 minutes in total for both supporters and objectors. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And can we agree the remainder of the order of business as outlined on the agenda? Agreed. Thank you. Would members please note the brief officer update report which has been circulated. And always please note that the full consideration and planning assessment matters is covered really comprehensively in the committee report, which I know members will have had full regard to. So the officer presentation will be a summary of the key issues only. Sorry, I'm having indicated. I'm so sorry, my notes missed out declarations of interest. Thank you. Can I ask for any declarations of interest from members, please? Councillor Lee Parkway.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to put on record that I do reside in Glasgow North, however, it doesn't make any difference to my continuation on the plan application today.
Thank you. We'll make sure the minutes reflect that. So could I then please call upon the applicants team for item number 6 to address the committee?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, good afternoon. My name is, sorry, shall I go ahead now?
Sorry, we are having some IT problems here, which means that we're connected to you via a laptop in the middle of the room. I think Shirley's got the volume up as much as she can. If it's possible for you to speak up and speak a little more slowly, perhaps than you would normally, that would really help us in hearing you, if that's okay.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is George Nash and I'm the agent representing the applicant Hyde Housing for this scheme. I'd like to start by thanking officers for their assistance before and during the determination of this application. And you'll have seen from the committee report that planning permission is sought solely to increase the amount of affordable housing provided on site. The increase in affordable housing at the scheme will provide an additional 10 social rent units and 7 affordable rent units. This is in addition to the 65 affordable units already provided on site, and the new units will be secured within the Section 106 via a deed of variation to be agreed with the council. Our client Hyde Housing are providing the additional affordable housing to uplift the total amount on site to more than 50%. In doing so, there'd be no requirement for a late stage review. Giving Hyde Housing's status as a housing association, this was considered to be the optimal way forward for them. No other changes are proposed as part of this application. They are already on site building out the proposals, so the sooner we can resolve this affordable housing position, the better. So yeah, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions if required.
Thank you very much. We have no supporters or objectors, so I'd like to suggest that we move to the officer presentation, and then we will have any discussion or questions thereafter.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
As before, Dan, unfortunately, the sound is coming from Shirley's laptop in the middle of a quite large council chamber. So just as the applicant very helpfully did, if you could speak up and speak a little more slowly than usually, that would really help.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. I'm as loud as I can be from my laptop, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Is everyone able to see the presentation?
Yes.
That's great. Okay, so item 6 relates to land on the corner of Store Road and Pier Road, located in North Woolwich. Slide 2 shows the site location and a recent aerial photograph. The site lies within a predominantly light industrial setting at present, with the Thames Water pumping station to the north, metal recycling centre to the west, and the North Woolwich ferry crossing serving the Thames located southwards of the site. The site and surrounding area is designated for residential and employment-led development within the adopted local plan. The application in question seeks to vary planning permission 1702/106 full, which granted consent for the erection of 163 residential units, associated access, servicing, parking, amenity space and landscaping. The Section 73 application proposes to amend the tenure mix associated with the existing consent to deliver an additional 17 affordable housing units within the development. Slide 4 shows the site prior to the commencement of the works on the left, and a recent photo of the development being built out on the right. 273 neighbouring properties were consulted on the application. A site notice was also erected on the junction of Pier Road and Store Road. No public comments have been received. Development principles have previously been established in the assessment of the aforementioned extant planning permission. So the number of residential units, housing mix, size and layout would not change, and elements of the development such as access, landscape offer and cycle storage would also be unaffected and would continue to be controlled by the planning conditions attached to the extant permission. Members should note that the only change proposed to the extant planning permission is to vary the tenure mix, which was previously approved, and as such, the only material planning consideration covered within this committee report and the presentation is affordable housing. So the extant permission would deliver 163 residential units, of which 45 would be affordable rental units and 22 under shared ownership. This represents a total of 40% affordable across the site, a shortfall of 10% in policy terms. The proposal seeks to vary the extant permission by revising the tenure mix to deliver an additional 10 affordable rental units and 7 shared ownership units. As a result, the development would deliver 51% affordable housing, 82 units in total. Whilst officers recognise that the 17 additional units would not be the council's preferred tenure type, it is acknowledged that the applicant is not obliged to deliver any additional affordable housing beyond what was originally consented. In terms of the Section 106 agreement associated with the extant permission, it states that financial contributions associated with early, mid and late stage viability reviews would be made for off-site affordable housing where viable. The current Section 73 application would guarantee the delivery of additional affordable housing as part of the development, which would be occupied in the near future, rather than financial contributions being made for off-site affordable housing stock, which is not certain. This approach is therefore preferred by officers. It's considered that the additional affordable housing would make a positive contribution toward the borough's affordable housing stock, which is welcomed by officers and would ensure that the development will exceed levels of affordable housing required in policy within the London and local plans. The Section 73 application is therefore supported, subject to the completion of a deed of variation to the Section 106 agreement, which is currently in place. In summary, officers request that the committee resolve to agree the reasons set out in the officers' report and delegate to the Director of Planning to grant planning permission subject to completion of a Section 106 legal agreement based on heads of terms identified in Appendix 2 of the committee report and Appendix 1 and conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, in terms of the committee members, are there any points that you would like to raise or questions that you have either for the officer or for the applicant? Councillor Masters.
I still feel quite new to this committee, so I apologise in advance if it's not a terribly bright question. But looking at my agenda, I see that the mix of affordable housing includes shared ownership. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the share, how that sort of constitutes affordable, because I'd meeting with Populo yesterday on a different matter and was surprised to find that there wasn't a standard share you bought into, that it could vary from a 60% share to a much lower share. I'm just interested in terms of the shares that are being made available, what the price is and how that compares to our knowledge about the earnings of our local population.
Dan, if I perhaps ask you to pick that question up.
I think I may have to go over to the applicant on this one in terms of the affordable housing that they're looking to contribute on top of what's already been approved.
Yeah, of course. Mr. Nash, are you able to reassure us at all?
Yeah, I mean, so Hyde Housing will deliver their intermediate product and the affordable rent product in accordance with the definition set out by the Greater London Authority. So I understand that the social rent units, for example, will operate under London Affordable.
Mr. Nash, are you still able to hear us? I'll just give 1 moment, just in case the connection's cut out and he's about to rejoin us.
Apologies, I got disconnected there. I think the last point I was saying was that the social rent units would be operated under London Affordable Rent as defined by the Mayor. So the Mayor will be setting the maximum rents applicable to those units. And in relation to the intermediate product, the shared ownership, again, they'll be capped at 80% of market rate in accordance with again, the Mayor of London definitions. So that will apply both to if they are ultimately set out as a rental product and or if they ultimately become, sold products. So that's how those units will operate. I don't have much more information than that available to me at this moment in time, but they will meet the defined definitions as set out by the London Mayor.
Specifically, to come back to Susan's question, what sort of percentage of the home would a shared ownership participant normally be able to purchase?
So the definition of a shared intermediate product would be that they would purchase it for no more than 80% of market rate, and obviously that would then have a bearing on what share they'll be going for, but I don't have
Sorry,
a
is
figure.
it possible that you're conflating there the affordable rent, which is 80% of market rate, and the intermediate product, which is shared ownership, where you both make a purchase and then also pay rent on the extent amount that you're renting effectively?
Yes, you are correct. For the shared ownership product, I do not have a figure to hand as to what the maximum or minimum share that a buyer could enter into.
I'm hearing from a colleague that it could be 25%. I imagine that's probably where it starts from. I wonder, James, if you're online, whether you're able to just give us a couple of kind of headline bits of information about the definition of shared ownership. Is there a GLA definition in order for a home to fit into that kind of envelope of being defined as affordable, about what kind of percentage people are able to buy, or do we know generally what sort of percentage new residents are generally able to purchase?
Just having a look at that information just now, but just wanted to clarify what George just said there about the affordable units. London Affordable Rent is a different affordable product to affordable rent. We very much understand the proposal to be for affordable rent. So George, it sounds like you're introducing the words London Affordable Rent when they are not in our committee report and committee assessment. Can you just confirm that we've understood that correctly? Because, we would obviously very much welcome London Affordable Rent instead of affordable rent. So if that is the commitment, then we will take that.
Absolutely, yes. If that's on the table, please do let us know. George, sorry, you're on mute at the moment.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just trying to check something. 1 second. I'm a little bit worried, Mr. Nash, that
the only material planning the only material planning considerations of this is the affordable products, but you don't necessarily seem to have that information to hand.
Yeah, yeah, apologies about that. So, yeah, I mean, they're social rent units. They'll be, you know, disseminated in the same way as the existing affordable units within the Section 106.
Sorry, what did you say about social rent?
The affordable rent units, the social rent units would be set at the same level as the social rent units that are already included within the Section 106.
I think that's what we're asking, because we're asking, are you talking about affordable rent, which is 80% market rent, or are you talking about social rent?
The affordable units, which i.e. not the shared ownership units, will be provided in according to the same as the existing proportion of affordable units. Yeah, that the terms and conditions will be identical to those already set out within the Section 106 agreement. The deed of variation is literally just adding the additional 10 units to that tenure.
Councillor Masters.
Through the chair, thanks to my colleagues' information, I've now got a better idea of at least what the percentages might be involved in shared ownership. So if you give me the actual price of the flat, then I might be able to work out what these units are selling for, and therefore through that how affordable they actually are. So how much are they selling for? If we're looking at a mix of 3, 2, and 1 bed units. So what would the overall cost of these flats be, so that I can get a kind of idea of what we're expecting you to pay?
I don't have the prices of the units. They're not currently on sale. The development is currently being built out. But yeah, Hyde operate a very flexible shared ownership model, which allows buyers to buy in at a low level and ladder up their payments, their market share over time. But I don't have sale prices available to provide at this moment.
Stephen, can I come back on this? I really want to check I'm on safe ground here. But I don't have any idea of how much these flats are going for and how affordable they are. So I don't feel very comfortable making a judgment on this item, but I don't know whether in doing that and going against officer approval, whether I can even. So I understand this was sort of agreed under a previous sort of policy regime, but I don't feel convinced by the evidence that I'm being presented with today to understand what these flats are going for.
Can I come in, Chair?
Sorry. Yes, why don't you come in first, Dan, and then I'll go back to the next.
So our understanding from where we've assessed this from is that the 17 additional units would match the requirements of policy in terms of a 60% and 40% split between affordable and intermediate. I don't think that's in dispute. What our understanding is that the affordable rent offer would be 80% below market value, so not genuinely affordable, but more affordable than market value. We haven't had any information to suggest that they would be London affordable rent or social rent. However, when the application was originally determined, it was determined on the basis that 40% affordable housing would be provided across site, subject to Section 106 affordable housing triggers to review whether or not there would be a surplus, and that surplus could be a contribution could be made towards off-site affordable housing in lieu. The Section 73 application, which is before you now, would guarantee 17 additional affordable / intermediate tenure units, rather than an off-site affordable housing contribution in lieu, which may or may not be achieved if it was viable. So that's kind of hopefully a more useful summary.
That's really helpful. Thank you. James.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks to the team as well. It's really joined to I think the lack of illumination in the report. I think we all know how precious affordable housing is, and we'd like to know, I guess, through the report, also through conversations with officers, what will be unaffordable rent, what's intermediate, i.e. shared ownership, and what is just social rent. And I don't really have much confidence that the agent, and my apologies if I'm wrong, has been fully briefed as to what the different definitions of affordability is before coming to the committee to prepare them for what the committee might ask. I'm minded, simply because we don't have information, and I do believe that we should always have full information in our reports so that we can make an informed decision. To make that informed decision now, I don't want to propose a deferment, but it doesn't seem as though officers can illuminate committee, nor can the agent illuminate committee as to what exactly what type of affordable that we are voting for. And unless I get any sort of indication what the levels of affordability are, what the different types of affordability are, I'm minded to move for deferment until the report can be I guess bulked out with a simple table saying this is what affordable and intermediate and not affordable social rents are going to be available. I know that can waste officer time, but I think it's important for our residents that as elected members we can go back and we can say this is the best deal that we've got for you on this establishment, this development which is currently underway. And I think also it shows a better level to developers as well, that when you come to committee, please provide the necessary information for members.
Thank you, Councillor Beckles. I trust the people on the Zoom call picked up the audio of that. James was wondering whether we might be in a position to consider deferring this application. I wonder if we could get some officer advice on that. I'm torn in a way because I do feel like I was clearer after I read the report than perhaps I was after I'd heard some of the answers from the agent. And I'm also conscious that what we're being offered is effectively an improvement on what is extant, if you like. And so I don't want us to run the risk of deferring a benefit and then finding that that benefit then doesn't come back for further consideration. Are officers able to advise, please?
Chair, thank you. I think officers are very clear about what the proposals are as per the committee report itself. We're talking about an uplift of affordable rent, which is up to 80% of market value for the affordable rented products, and shared ownership. And to add some additional information for Councillor Masters, the definition is that shared ownership works. You can usually buy a share between 10 and 75% of the home's full market value, and then you pay rent on the remainder of what's left. The GLA's shared ownership definition says that it should be affordable to households on incomes up to £90,000, and those are income caps. So those are pretty standard wordings that are included into Section 106 agreements. I think the applicant has, George, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've used affordable terms interchangeably and caused some confusion. We understand social rent to be very different to what you might understand social rent to be. And likewise, London affordable rent is a far cheaper product than what is being offered in the committee papers. So we thought we understood what the proposal is, but if your sort of presentation has misunderstood that, then please let us know. But if there is a different proposal on the table, then officers would of course not object to a deferral to seek a betterment in the terms as we understood it initially.
James, just to...
Come back to me. Are we looking at exactly what's in the papers, namely affordable rent, which is 80% of market rent, and shared ownership? Or are you suggesting now at this committee some kind of combination of social rent and or London affordable rent?
Yeah, I apologise for my conflation of terms earlier. And yes, the offer on the table is as James has described, the affordable rent product at 80% of market rate, and then the shared ownership units on top, all in accordance with the signed Section 106 agreements for the units that have already been granted permission. It's just an extenuation of those terms to cover these additional units that will be secured by deed of variation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I have to say, it's therefore my inclination as chair that there wouldn't necessarily be a benefit in pursuing or deferring this, despite some of the confusion that there's evidently been. But of course, members are still, at liberty to propose a deferral, and we will vote on that accordingly if that is what you want. I did have one question, which is that I noticed in the papers there'd been a planning enforcement case which had been opened about the hours of construction and had then been closed. I wondered, does anyone know any more about that?
So I believe the each and every planning enforcement is investigate. What's the word I'm looking for? Every case that's opened is investigated accordingly. Party, we've got confidence in our planning enforcement team, and it was investigated and found that there was no breach to sort of serve any additional action on, and it was closed accordingly. And to my knowledge, there's been no further enforcement issues with the site since.
Thank you. Councillor Parkway.
Thank you, Chair. So just going through the document that we've received, I do just want to pick up on the amount of affordable housing that's contained within this application. And I would like to say thank you to the developers you've actually reached the 50%, which is one thing that we would expect and I'm very much grateful for. But I do just want to pick up. You spoke about an uplift in shared ownership by 7 units, and 10 units in affordable housing units. And I just wondered, in regards to the parking, if it's at all possible, just to understand, is there then an uplift in the parking arrangements for those, if for instance they are or could be used as disabled units that would be able to, for instance, occupy a wheelchair? Is there any changes within the car parking arrangements on it?
So in this case, we're only looking at the obviously the change in affordable housing tenure mix, and that no other sort of drawings documentation has been put forward. However, in the event that we need to deliver accessible parking or adapted units, that's something that I'm sure that the home builder or developer could look into in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Were there any further questions or comments? James.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the affordable housing again, where I think people might have physical disability. How many of those homes will be compliant with disability or be adaptable for those residents who might have a disability or potential buyers?
Really sorry, Councillor Beckles, but I missed the vast majority.
The uplift in affordable housing, how many of those will be able to be used by residents who might have a disability or are adaptable or able to be adapted for those with a disability, such as wide entrances to hallways, bathrooms which are suitable size, allowing people with a disability, maybe potentially a chair or otherwise, to get into the in and out of baths. Will they be able to be adapted easily for if they have an occupational therapist come around? And and it requires to be to have a railing or any sort of adaptations that are needed to make it fit for purpose. So that we're not excluding people anyway.
So 10% of the units would be accessible and adaptable compliant as built. And then the remaining units within the site as a whole would be compliant with wheelchair user adaptability and accessibility. So if any of the other units need to be adapted, they have the ability to do so. So in that regard, if there was a requirement to have 100% wheelchair user adaptable and accessibility within the site, that could be achieved.
Thank you. I don't think that we had further questions, so I'd like to suggest that we move to the vote on this first item. Dan, am I able to ask you to share your final screen, please, so we can see the officer recommendations?
I can indeed, Chair.
Thank you. The committee is asked to agree the reasons for approval as set out in that report and etc. Can I please ask those in favour to raise their hands? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That concludes the first item on our agenda. The next item is item number 7, which is Mr. Harrier, did you want to address the committee?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you so much for letting me speak on behalf of the developer and the development that's been built already. We're simply...
I'm really sorry, Mr. Harrier, the sound quality in here is really poor. Can I maybe ask you to just raise your voice a bit and maybe slow down a bit so it will sound to you as though you're speaking artificially slowly, but it will really help those of us here in the hall to be able to hear what you're saying.
Sure, okay. Just starting again, thank you again for letting me speak on behalf of the developers. We are looking to change just the use class. In this case, the use class is already Class E as artist studios, and we're just looking to widen the use class. So there is effectively, plenty of development going on around us, and it necessitates, to a certain extent, relevant commercial in the area to help with the residential units that are coming up.
Thank you. As with the previous application, we have no supporters or objectors registered to speak. So could we move to the officer presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone...
Sorry, Chloe, can we just pause for one moment? We're just going to see if we can put the sound out of another device and see if that helps. Just one moment.
Okay.
Does that mean we need to use it? Is that muted?
Yeah. Can you hear us in the room?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, that's much better.
Okay. We've just moved the sound within the council chamber to a different device. We're going to see if that makes you more audible. Chloe, sorry to keep you waiting. If you want to start your presentation, but as before, as loud and as clear and relatively slow as you can make it is really useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Item 7 relates to the application site at New Willow House at 210 Plasto Road. So the site is located on the northern side of Plasto Road, opposite Plasto Underground Station. The site is bounded by London Underground railway lines to the north. The site is allocated within a local mixed-use area adjacent to the new Plasto Station Local Centre, which is outlined as Strategic Site S29 on the policy map. In March 2013, planning permission was granted for the demolition of an existing warehouse and workshop on the site and the erection of a Part 6 and Part 8-story building, incorporating 18 artist studios and 33 flats. The approved development has been completed. Condition 15 attached to the original planning permission restricts the use to Class B1 to protect local amenity. The ground floor area comprises vacant artist studios, and the associated common parts totals 620 square meters. The entrance to the artist studios is located on the Plaistow Road frontage, separated from the residential entrance. The application seeks to expand the range of uses to include other uses within Class E. The submitted planning statement outlines that since the permission was granted, the Stratford area has become a hub for artist studios. As a result, the ground floor commercial units at the site remain vacant. The application does not incorporate any physical changes to the building. The application is a minor application and is required to be determined at committee because the development exceeds 250 square meters for health centers and nurseries under Class E. Minor applications are not subject to the same requirements as major applications. Therefore, certain requirements such as employment contributions do not apply. The key issues of the proposed scheme are principle of development, design, impact upon amenity, and transport. For the principle of development, the use class amendment came into force on the 1st of September 2020, which include the creation of a new commercial business and service use class. The new Class E incorporates shops, financial and professional services, restaurants and cafes, offices, nurseries and health centers, and sports facilities. The site already has planning permission for Class B1, which translates to offices and other business uses under a subcategory of Class E. Local Plan Policy J2 outlines that local mixed-use area are allocated for employment-led mixed use that protects and promotes Class B1 uses and other employment-generating uses compatible with residential, subject to town center policies, and allows for managed transition and redevelopment to focus on the ongoing viable operation of such uses and design incorporating or compatible with residential uses. Local Plan Policy INF 5 states that out-of-center town center uses over 300 square meters, including community use, will be subject to a sequential test and an impact assessment. The submitted town center sequential and impact assessment concluded that the new local center around Plaistow Station and other nearby centers are generally well occupied by Class E and main town center users, with few vacant units, and are demonstrating good levels of vitality and viability. The submitted managed transition statement also cited the council's employment land review, which states that the application site is suitable for Class E uses as part of a wider mix of development. The applicant undertook a marketing exercise commencing in January 2020. This ran for several months, but coincided with COVID. 2 formal offers were received, and at least one of the offers was withdrawn due to the pandemic. Whilst the site is allocated as a local mixed-use area, which seek to protect the use of the site as offices and other employment-generating uses compatible with residential, the proposed flexibility for the full range of Class E uses is considered justified by supporting evidence. The proposal is therefore considered acceptable in land use terms and would generally be a positive development which would bring forward a site which has remained vacant. In terms of design, the existing ground floor is a purpose-built commercial space that provides a partially glazed active frontage and facilitates an inclusive and outwardly looking presence on the street. The proposal does not deliver any design changes. As such, the proposal has no impact on design quality and is considered to be acceptable. In terms of impact upon amenity, the proposal is purely for change of use and no external works are proposed. The proposed development would not incorporate any ducting for the cooking of food. Any external plant and ducting will be subject to a separate planning permission. Subject to conditions on facility management plan and details of the waste management arrangements, the proposal is supported in relation to impact to neighboring amenity. In terms of transport, the previous planning consent did not include car parking on site for the commercial use. London Plan Policy T5 states that for Class A1 non-food retail above 100 square meters, 1 long stay per the first 1,000 square meters and 1 short stay cycle space per the first 1,000 square meters should be provided. 64 long stay cycle parking spaces were approved at the lower ground floor of the development, accessed via Ashburton Terrace. The previous planning permission did not require any differentiation in terms of uses of the spaces or whether they be short or long stay. Of the approved 64 long stay cycle spaces, 30 have been allocated for the residential occupiers and 34 for the ground floor commercial uses as indicated on the lower ground floor plan. The proposed development would also provide 2 short stay cycle parking spaces on Plaster Road. Officers therefore consider the cycle parking spaces would exceed the requirement, and the details of cycle parking provision will be secured by condition. LBN transportation officers consider that the proposals are appropriate, subject to conditions and measures, which include the obligation to be a reduced car development, travel plan monitoring fees, delivery and servicing plan, and details of cycle parking. A total of 107 consultation letters were sent to the neighboring properties, and the council received 1 supporting letter. The Strategic Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in this report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a legal agreement based on the head of terms identified at Appendix 2 and the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I check that those on Zoom are able to hear us in the room now that we've switched devices?
Yes, we are.
Great, thank you. Members, sorry, Chloe, could I ask you to stop sharing?
Yes, sorry, 1 second.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Members, did you have any questions or points that you wish to make? James.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome the addition of the artist space. Just wondered, is it going to be affordable? Because as we know, I think artists are not necessarily.
Sorry, Councillor Beckles, it's actually a change of use from the artist studios to commercial use.
To commercial use. Sorry, so scrap my question. My apologies.
Susan and then Colleen.
I'm really intrigued by this particular shift, because I know sometimes people will go in for one class of use to then knowing that it will be really easy to shift it from there to another use. So I'm really intrigued in why the applicant went for this very, very specific use for the lower units in the first place, and yet there were no takers. It just seems really strange that there was this overwhelming feeling that there was going to be a demand for artist studios, and then they weren't taken up. And I appreciate, you know, the impact of the pandemic, but that would have had an impact on any kind of retail use. And I mean, I know there are no design changes that are going to be taking place, but artist studios are quite small units. So I'm just wondering how practical any of these other uses are. And I'm wondering whether there is a definite idea in mind for the future of these units, which might not be material, but it just interests me.
Perhaps I could ask the applicant whether you have any background on the initial thinking about the artist studios and also on their adaptability.
Yes, we as applicants, we actually bought the scheme with planning, so it had already got a scheme already placed on it with artist studios and residential on it. The intention was obviously to build the residential and then let it out towards artist studios. As was pointed out, there has been the impact of COVID, but apart from that, there's been a general move for a number of artist studios that have opened up near Stratford. So there hasn't been an uptake on that front at all. The reason to actually change and go for change of use is also these units have been empty, but what is more relevant in the area is to bring forth the other classes of use that could occupy these units. In terms of just thinking about the sizes of the units and how they could be used, one of the thinking caps that we had on up here was the units would form perfectly for medical centers or various other uses in that area. We have got a number of units that can be actually combined together. So we may have, units 16, 17 like that, and they can be combined together to form a slightly larger unit if required. And there are sort of, certain uses specifically with what's going on right opposite us in terms of the developments that Newham is carrying on and what's around and nearby, and having level access. There are certain uses, referring back to medical centers or other retail users that would actually do very well in this site and support the community.
Can I come back on this? I'm just, you seem to have quite a specific idea in mind, and with my other hat on as chair of health scrutiny, I know we need new health estate in Newham, but I'm just wondering what conversations you've actually had, whether you've spoken to any of the local GP practices or the integrated care system to see whether they would be interested, given that there is money available.
The answer to that is we haven't. We would like to, because this would be like our next stage. In fact, we had a meeting earlier on, I think a couple of months back with Newham Planning. And at that time, it was actually they who suggested that you've actually got level access. From a health perspective, this would be very useful from a medical center and all that. So this is where we came up and we said, all right, okay, this actually makes good sense. So the next stage, once we get this approved, would be to start having a conversation. And I would definitely want to open up a conversation with yourselves, if that's possible, to see how that could work.
Thank you. Colleen.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to pick up on the points that have already been made in regards to change of use. And I understand and can see how this specific site could lend well to an industry in which you just detailed. However, I do just want to pick up on the space between the building and the road, and there isn't much space on that pavement area for instance. I guess the reason why I wanted to raise this, because on the presentation that was given by our officer, it specifically said nurseries, and I just looked at the point of children coming out of that door directly into the line of traffic if they, for instance, missed a step and dropped into the road. There is no railings in that specific piece of road. So I wondered how the site, with the idea of lending it to a different use, and I would like, I'm very aware of this site, it's literally on my doorstep. But, and we already know that the pharmacy works well in that space, but I just want to understand the building versus the traffic and the space in which there is on that pavement. How would that land, William? Is there anything in this change of use that takes in consideration the pavement size outside of that specific piece of building?
Thank you. Chloe, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. So because like I've said earlier that there's a change of use class that came into force on the 1st of September 2020. So actually, if the condition 15 was not attached to the original consent in 2012, that was like approved before the change of use class, then this could have been permitted development, because it's a national regulation to like include this flexibility under Class E. So that's why like there are some planning, because also this is a minor application where like it's only involving 620 square meters of floor space, and they don't fall under the threshold of the transport assessment that we usually do for like some of the major applications. So like on balance, given the above factors, like we haven't had a conversation about the pavement, because like it would ordinarily be a permitted development if like the condition has not been attached to the original consent.
I can see your point about effectively kind of planning or kind of enabling us to use that as a kind of lever to force things to happen. But obviously, that notwithstanding, as elected members, we're concerned about safety and the safety of people using the site. I wonder if we could perhaps ask you to take that away as an action to flag this change of use up with our colleagues in highways and in active travel, and ask, regardless of who the tenants are in the end, that they have a look at this corner and check whether there's anything that we need to do from a safety perspective. Obviously, it's nice if we can require safety improvements to be paid for by developers, but where we can't, we still need to keep people safe.
Yeah.
It'd be good to get an experienced pair of eyes cast over that. Could we leave that one with you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Singh Verdi.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Just carrying on from my other two colleagues, has the applicant received any kind of formal or any interest in anything under the new planning application, which is quite an array of things, to say that, yes, I'm thinking of maybe if one of these does come up, or has there been no interest at all from any of them?
Can I address that? So we have not actually been able to, until we actually get the approval for change of use, we can't actually go out and market it as such at all. So as there's been effectively no marketing done behind it, there hasn't been any confirmation of whether there has been interest to that. Because as it stands at the moment, the only marketing that's taken place has been behind the artist studios as such. And that, with that in regard, we haven't actually had any luck there.
Chair, can I just come back?
Please do.
Obviously, there would have been a notice that gone out that they're looking for a change of use anyway, in a sense, displayed to the public. But I would have thought maybe somebody might have been in contact to say, if you do get approval, we would be interested.
We have had the agents that the commercial agents that we deal with, we have had them say in the past when we were marketing it under Artist Studios that yes, if you could actually get a change of use, then we do have other classy users that would be interested, and that's the only conversation that's happened since then.
Susan and then James.
I mean, obviously, from our point of view, there are businesses we would not want to see in there as well, like fast food takeaways. And I'm just wondering if what the position would be, whether that might be a possibility off the back of it. I remember there was a comment about how, you know, if it were to go down that road, they'd need to sort of get an application to install some kind of sort of vent. So I'm just wondering, in terms of our current planning restrictions around having more than a certain number of fast food things, are there protections there to ensure it doesn't go down that road?
Thank you for raising that. I was going to ask exactly the same question, and also about betting shops.
Yes, there is already one.
Thank you. So the betting shops and hot food takeaways are under the use class of sui generis. So like approving this application will not grant planning permission for them to have like hot food takeaway or like betting shops. It will only grant restaurants and cafes under class E.
Thank you. That's really reassuring. James.
Thanks, Joe. Just an extension of what colleagues have mentioned about having that business lined up and not having a vacant space, really. We see a lot of new developments, with a lot of commercial space, as a lot of it stays vacant sometimes for months on end. And just wondering if there's a business plan. The applicant did mention he's spoken to your, I guess your property management team, and they said about classy establishments. So I wonder if they've got a business plan, and was that part of the submission?
Sorry.
So yeah, the business plan was not part of the submission, but I'm not sure if Harriet would want to come in and like.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I kind of just barely heard that, but I think the question was whether there's been some sort of a business plan submitted as to who would be coming in terms of the change of use. Is that correct?
Yes, we want to make sure that our retail units are occupied and vibrant and contributing positively to our high streets and aren't left vacant for a long time.
Yes, yeah. So I think the specific change of use that actually came into place was actually just to actually, sort of envisage that would happen. That is what we wanted to do. The units have been empty for a period of time through COVID as well. The residents upstairs who have occupied it are also getting frustrated with them being fairly empty, and so are the neighbours. there is support from one of the applicants who's come back and said, yeah, it's about time that this, kind of change to something else so that somebody else can come in. And so in terms of, there's not a specific business plan that we've done. What we have done is we've basically listened to what the residents are saying. We'll listen to effectively what the marketing, the consultants have said that, yeah, if we had a change of views, then yes, there would be definitely an uptake. And we are looking to, not establish retailers that are not very popular, example, betting shops and various other things that we haven't even applied for, and ideally support the community in some way. So, your previous councillor did say that there are various options in terms of doctors' surgeries and various. So we'll definitely be looking forward to having a chat about that and finding a little bit more about that to bring in the right people here.
And I'm sure if you were keen that the ward councillors could assist you with some meanwhile uses as well, if it looked like those units were going to be empty.
Sure.
I don't think that I see any further questions, so I think I'm going to move us on to the vote. Chloe, could I ask you to share your final slide again, please? Thank you. So the committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in this report and etc. Can I ask those in favour to raise their hands, please? That is also unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes item 7 on the agenda. Moving on now to item 8, which is Abbey House, Baker's Row. I'd like to ask the applicant who's in the room with us if you did you want to make a presentation or be available for questions?
Just give a short speech and then, yeah, questions is absolutely fine.
Okay. Can I ask, could the people who've joined us on Zoom hear that answer from the applicant? You could hear. Okay, I'm going to ask the applicant to start speaking. If those on Zoom can't hear us, I might ask him to move over so he's standing closer to the device that is connected. We'll see how that goes. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members, and thank you, Chair, for permitting me to speak at short notice. The Abbey House site presents a fantastic opportunity to deliver much-needed homes for Newham in a very sustainable location. It is adjacent to Abbey Road DLR station and within walking distance of Stratford and other local centres. We in the current design team have been engaged in pre-application discussions with officers and members since 2020 to seek to find a solution for the site. This has been a rigorous process during which we wholesale reorganised the site layout midway through in response to advice from the Council's design review plan. We also tested various different massing strategies to seek to strike the optimum balance between townscape, neighbour effects, but also crucially financial viability. Unfortunately, during the course of the discussions over the last 3 years, the macroeconomic climate has significantly worsened, such that whilst at the start of the process it was the applicant's hope and intention to provide affordable housing on site, this has become increasingly difficult. As a result, the objective viability analysis the applicant received concludes that the scheme cannot viably provide any affordable housing. And this is the conclusion which the Council's viability consultant recently concurred with. Notwithstanding that, though, we remain keen to now discuss this matter further with the Council. And it may be, for example, that there are other options available to the applicant, perhaps through the availability of grants by a registered provider, which may allow some affordable housing to be provided. The terraced family houses, for instance, would be a good opportunity. This is something that we're keen to investigate in detail immediately. Whilst officers have recommended a number of refusal reasons, we believe that the majority have now been addressed by the package of further information that we submitted earlier today, such that the situation in terms of the planning considerations and the overall balance is now quite different from how it's been reported in the committee before. Therefore, given that the affordable housing situation has not yet reached its conclusion, and that there is now further important new information for officers and members to consider, we strongly believe that this application has come before this committee prematurely. And consequently, we ask that the committee to first make a decision on this application today, particularly to allow us to continue and properly conclude discussions with officers, such that the proposal may be able to come back to you say in a month's time, with a more policy compliant package of benefits, hopefully alternative recommendation.
Thank you. As we have no supporters or objectors registered, we'll move to the officer presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so item 8 relates to the application site at Abbey House, Bakers Row, Stratford. The site is located directly to the east of the Abbey Road DLR station and is bound by rail infrastructure and road frontages on Abbey Road and Bakers Row. The site lies within a non-strategic housing allocation as a residential-led mixed-use site. The site contains 12 residential units within a 3-story residential block. The area is characterized by 2-story terrace residential properties. The land to the north of the site is listed as a scheduled ancient monument known as Stratford Langthorne Abbey. The Three Mills Conservation Area lies to the southwest of the site. A number of listed buildings are present within a 600 meters radius. The application seeks demolition of the existing buildings and the erection of a row of 2-story terrace houses and a building of between 4 and 14 stories to provide 74 residential units and associated landscaping and public realm improvements. The application affects the setting of a scheduled monument, the Three Mills Conservation Area, and 13 listed buildings and structures. A previous application was refused in October 2018 for a development comprising a 17-story building containing 100 residential units and flexible A1, A2, D2 use on ground floor. The 13 reasons for refusal are shown on this slide. The previous affordable housing offer was 35% based on habitable rooms. Following the refusal, the applicant engaged with the council in 3 pre-application meetings, DRPs, and a members forum. The image on the left shows the 17-story development refused under the previous planning application, and the image on the right shows the proposed 14-story development under the current application. The key considerations that are found to be acceptable are shown on the left, and reasons for refusal as set out in the committee report are shown on the right, which includes height, scale and massing, overshadowing, daylight and sunlight, affordable housing, housing mix, heritage, waste and energy. The presentation will be focusing on the reasons for refusal. In terms of height, scale and massing, the building is not within a tall buildings area. Any tall buildings would need to demonstrate an exceptional exemplary design and added value to its context in line with local plan policy SP4. Comments from the DRP can be found in page 123 to 127 of the report. Comments made during the DRP chair's workshop questioned the justification for a landmark tall building in this location, given the predominantly low-rise buildings within the context. A maximum height of around 6 to 7 stories was outlined as a more appropriate scale and way of intensifying the site, given the site's typology and historically sensitive location. This does not appear to have been addressed in the design for this application. LBN Design and Conservation officers also considered that the proposed massing and height of the tower is deemed to be disproportionate in its context and presents an overbearing, incongruous form that negatively impacts the primarily low-rise character of the existing context. The proposed scheme fails to deliver the added value expected of all tall buildings. The proposed building's height, scale, and massing is not in accordance with the development plan and is not supported. In terms of neighboring amenity, the submitted daylight and sunlight report illustrates minor adverse impacts to neighboring properties in relation to the vertical sky component test and annual probable sunlight hours analysis. The scale and bulk of the tower would result in it being highly prominent, intrusive, and oppressive within the outlook of the terraces on Bakers Row, Abbey Road, and Pond Road, including their gardens. The cumulative neighboring impacts arising from the proposed 14-story tower in terms of loss of outlook, loss of daylight, and overshadowing would result in undue harm to the neighboring amenity to the detriment of the occupiers. The tower element would therefore represent an unneighborly form of development. In terms of affordable housing, local plan policy H2 requires that all new developments of 10 or more units provide 35 to 50% affordable housing on site. Proposal delivering below 50% of the total units as affordable housing are required to be accompanied by a detailed viability appraisal. The proposed development would not contain any affordable housing within any tenure. The submitted financial viability appraisal concludes that the proposed development would generate a deficit of 8.1 million of deficit against the viability benchmark. LBN commissioned an independent review of the viability assessment by BNP Paribas. BNPP concluded that the proposed development generates a deficit of 1.8 million against the viability benchmark and noted that there is potential for a variance due to the early information the cost estimate is based compared to the cost when the works are undertaken. It should be understood that the developer may choose to undertake value engineering exercises after gaining planning permission in order to reduce their cost. The developer may also use different construction methodologies to reduce program and therefore cost. The GLA's viability team noted that at this stage, it is not possible to confirm that the scheme is providing the maximum viable amount of affordable housing. In relation to grant funding, the position is unclear, and the extent of discussions undertaken to date and with which parties should be clarified. GLA officers further states that the substantial deficit identified in the financial viability appraisal could be reduced by modeling the scheme on the basis of a build-to-rent proposal and altering financial appraisal assumptions, including adopting a site value in line with the applicant's financial accounts for the latest available accounting period. Since pre-application stage, officers have continued to raise concerns about the failure to make provision for any affordable housing. It was therefore the case that the applicant submitted this application in the knowledge that there would be an absence of any policy support for the failure to provide any affordable housing. Further to this, the applicant was offered the opportunity to make a meaningful financial contribution to affordable housing by email on the 30th of August. The applicant has not provided any response on providing affordable housing or payment in lieu to date. Officers are of the view that the applicant has been given every opportunity to respond to provide an offer which aligns with policy, in particular, local plan policy H2. The failure to address development plan policies in regards to affordable housing is not supported and fails to make a positive contribution to reducing affordable housing waiting lists and contribute towards mixed and balanced communities. As mentioned in the previous slides, tall buildings will need to be justified by added value in line with local plan policy SP4. The height of the building could be reduced to 6 to 7 stories without the provision of affordable housing. The absence of affordable housing compounds with the issues associated with the proposed height and is considered as a reason for refusal. In terms of housing mix, local plan policy H1 requires 39% of new homes to be 3-bedroom homes. The proposed development will deliver a total of 74 new residential units with only 25.7% 3-bed. Whilst the viability assessment has been submitted, the scheme fails to address policy requirements and on balance represents an unacceptable departure from the 39% family housing requirement. The proposed development will fail to provide mixed and balanced housing types in accordance with identified local need. In particular, the proposal fails to provide family-sized housing for which the local authority has identified a shortage of and therefore prioritizes over the provision of smaller units. In terms of heritage and archaeology, Historic England was consulted and considered that the proposed development would overshadow the tranquil space and garden which is built above and protects the archaeology of the scheduled monument. The proposed development is therefore considered to cause less than substantial harm to the significance of the monument through comprising its setting. LBN Design and Conservation Officers considered that the proposed development would have a less than substantial harm on the setting of the Three Mills Conservation Area and scheduled monument due to the scale and prominence. The proposed development, by reason of its height, scale, and massing, would cause less than substantial harm to the setting of the Stratford Langford Abbey Ancient Monument and the Three Mills Conservation Area. The public benefits of the proposal would not outweigh the less than substantial harm caused to the setting of the aforementioned heritage assets, and is therefore contrary to the development plan. In terms of waste, the submitted document lacks information on the distance of how far the refuse collection vehicle can reverse, and if bulky waste storage will be provided. In addition, the tracking plan would indicate trees and parked cars being a problem, and this concern has been reiterated by representations received from neighbors. LBN waste officers were consulted and raised concerns on refuse collection arrangements. Due to the site constraints, officers consider that a condition to secure a delivery and service plan would not be appropriate to overcome the concerns relating to the proposed waste management arrangements. Refusal is recommended on these grounds. In terms of energy, GLA officers requested further information on measures to mitigate overheating risks. GLA officers also requested further details on PV panels and air source heat pumps to ensure on-site savings from renewable energy technologies have been maximized. The submitted energy strategy does not provide sufficient information to confirm whether London plan policies on energy and overheating have been met. Should the development be recommended for approval, conditions would not be reasonable, as it is not clear whether the site could maximize opportunities for renewable energy and reduce the potential for internal overheating without the necessary evidence of the appropriate pre-assessment. A total of 869 consultation letters were sent to neighboring properties and 20 objections were received. In summary, the objections relate to out of character and overdevelopment, loss of daylight, sunlight and overshadowing, loss of privacy and overlooking, lack of affordable housing, impact on heritage assets, impact on parking, lack of appropriate access arrangements, and pressure on local infrastructure. Matters relating to the principle of development, employment, quality of accommodation, landscape and play space, biodiversity net gain, transportation, inclusive access, security and safety, and flood risk management are found to be acceptable. Full details is included in the committee report. The Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and resolve to agree the reasons for refusal set out in the committee report, refer this application to the Mayor of London as a stage 2 referral, and subject to the Mayor of London advising that he is content to allow the council to determine the application itself or to issue a direction under Article 7 of the Town and Country Planning Order that the Mayor is to act as the local planning authority for the purpose of determining the application, to delegate authority to the Director of Planning to refuse planning permission as set out in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn now to comments and questions. I just want to abuse the position of chair a little bit to begin with by talking to the applicants briefly about affordable housing. My apologies to my fellow members who will have heard me get on this soapbox before. I do appreciate what you said about the economy having changed while you've been considering this site, but it is really impossible to overstate how important affordable homes are to people in Newham. Our inboxes, our surgeries, our streets are absolutely full of people really, really struggling with the private rental sector in particular. Newham residents living in horribly overcrowded conditions, unable to afford a decent home, unable to provide stability for their children, unable to stay where their communities, their schools, where their heritage and their friends are. Every single genuinely affordable home that's provided is a home for our residents. And honestly, I often think that every single flat provided out to the commercial market, particularly one-bedroom flats, are probably going to end up being bought by young graduates with money from the bank of mum and dad, probably moving into Newham from outside Newham. And do you know what? Good for them. But they are not Newham people and not Newham residents, and they're not who our planning policy and who our politics and our morals say that we really, really need to support. So I just really wanted to reiterate that point to begin with. You probably heard earlier us talking about whether homes that even fitted within the legal definition of affordable were really genuinely suitable for new residents. And obviously this development doesn't even offer those. It doesn't offer anything at all, which is just a really, really hard place to start from. Having said all that, members, did you have any comments or questions? Susan?
I guess my question is, and it's kind of two-sided. Firstly, to our officers, if we do allow a deferral today, will we be suffering any loss of any kind? I mean, I'm assuming that that might bump back somebody else's sort of planning application, but other than that, surely they can go on bringing things and we can go on batting them away if they're unsuitable. And my second question is to the applicants. If you do come back, what are you thinking of changing? Because this is at the moment totally the officers have just outlined why it's totally unacceptable to us in quite great detail. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure why we're spending why it's even come before us.
Thank you. Could I ask officers first for a view on either their recommendation, which obviously is refusal, as opposed to any potential benefits of deferring today?
Well, Chair, I can pick that up. I mean, the applicant has said that, you know, a refusal is premature. I would totally disagree with that. We've assessed the application as it was submitted. We've assessed the application on its merits. We did not invite the application to be submitted in its current form. We've gone through due process and consulted internal and external colleagues and consulted members of the public. It's evident this whole application is totally unacceptable for many reasons, as set out in the presentation and the committee report. The applicant has submitted some additional information regarding waste, energy, and, you know, hoping that we're going to go away and come back with a different conclusion. But I think that totally misrepresents how much of an importance officers place upon affordable housing as one of the single biggest benefits for Newham residents. So yes, you might have a report that might have a slightly different list of reasons for refusal. It may be that the waste pulling distances, etc., has been resolved. You know, some of those things are not insurmountable, but I don't think it will tip the balance, and I don't think it will come back. The information that's been submitted to us, there's no change to height. There's no change to mix, and affordable housing remains at 0%. I think it's unreasonable behaviour from the applicant to submit that information just over an hour before the committee starts, and then expects that officers will go away, take receipt of that information, and waste valuable public resource in re-examining that information from the start. We're very confident that we will be able to deal with this if the applicant exercises their right of appeal. We're very confident we will be able to robustly defend the position appeal. We stand by our recommendation for refusal, and our advice is that members have enough information before them this evening, and that the information that's set out in our committee report gives a fair representation of the balance and the key reasons for refusal.
But I think from my point of view, what I was suggesting was, I mean, I'm assuming if they bring it back, there's a financial cost to them and there's a financial benefit to us. So, you know, if they're going to keep bringing unsuitable proposals for us and we're going to keep rejecting them, if there's a financial benefit to such irrational behaviour, then isn't it worth just allowing them to keep coming with silly ideas? If you see what I mean.
Not, you know, I don't agree with that approach, I'm afraid. You know, we want to prioritise and spend our time dealing with applicants who, you know, listen to pre-application advice, you know, listen to officer advice, and hopefully present applications before you that are approvals. Sometimes applications are not approvals, but that doesn't mean that going away. I think officers' view is that we'd be delaying the inevitable, and it would actually officers would exhaust further time, reviewing the information, rewriting the committee report, reconsulting the public, all at the cost of the public purse, and still come back with a report for refusal.
We can't bump our charges up.
The second part of Susan's question was to the applicants about what you might realistically be able to go away and change, and then I can see Carleen and then James.
Sure, and thank you. And we completely hear what you were saying about affordable housing being the most important thing, you know, the most important matter for your constituents, and we get that. We completely get that. The reason why the application as submitted, was on the basis of affordable housing, is because these things do require investigation and negotiation. And whilst the officer did explain that it was put to us on us that no affordable housing would be in an acceptable position. We completely expected that response. We know that that would never be acceptable to members. The reason why we have to go through that process is because until we've understood what the council's viability consultation is, until we know what all of the other consultation responses are, what the costs may be associated with the consultation response, it's impossible for us to put forward with any rigour an offer that will sort of investigate what might be the solution through here. That's why we've had to wait for that to come in. And that information from the consultees is literally only coming in the last sort of couple of weeks. It's not as if we've been sat on it for months. But what I said to you within my speech is absolutely the case. There's an absolute determination to go away, do those investigations. This isn't, we've got no reason, it's not in our interest to waste time unnecessarily. But there's a real determination to go away and do those investigations, potentially come back.
I suppose just to come back for a moment, like, you know, that is good to hear in a way, but it's also a bit confusing because that's not normally how this process works. Normally, I would expect if an applicant is really committed to providing affordable homes, that you would have done that before you come here. Like, this is a really, really late stage in the process to be thinking about approaching an affordable homes provider or, you know, talking about grant funding or any of those things. You know, normally the usual process is that developers don't feel that they have to wait until they're in the council chamber to see whether 0% is acceptable and to go away and see what they can do. People normally, the consideration of planning application comes right at the end of all that work rather than in the middle. So I guess my kind of question to you then is why submit the planning application at this point in negotiations rather than once that's all done?
Our long experience of dealing with these sorts of situations with housing associations as well is that until you've got, until a housing association has got pretty good confidence in a scheme, it's very difficult to engage them in any kind of negotiation. We've experienced that throughout London, and that's the reason why it would have been a waste of our time to try and engage housing associations before we sit that negotiation. That's based on my experience.
Okay, I guess I can only say that's not necessarily our experience as a committee, but I guess that varies. Colleen and then James.
Thank you, Chair. Some of us here on the committee this evening have been here before with this application, have seen this from the very beginning. And I'll be honest, as one of those committee members, I'm actually quite disappointed. This application, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you've got to present what you've presented, the way in which you've presented it. However, this application falls short of affordable housing. It falls short of family homes. It's not, it's the density, the height, sorry, of the buildings is too high. Nothing has really changed apart from, let's just see if we can get it in and get it pushed through. And I would urge us all to think about all the things that we do in this committee around what's important to the residents of Newham, and those that should be able to appreciate a build of such and benefit from a build of such. And I kind of, you know, there are lots of things. No turning circles for a waste truck, for instance. They're just like basic stuff, like, you know, it's basic stuff. And I understand the site and I understand the area. I grew up there, so I understand it. But I don't see how the report before us today, and I appreciate you've come in here today and you've asked for deferment with the intention of fixing what it is that's gone wrong. But I also hear the comments of our officers in relation to, we've had many opportunities to ensure that this was fixed before we got to this point. And I appreciate you're looking at us, but the reality is this is your application, not ours. It's your responsibility to make sure it's right before it comes before us. It's your responsibility to ensure that the things that we had spoken about through different processes beforehand were dealt with before it came to this point. So, Chair, I would actually push to say that we go to the vote, not wasting any more time, as you do have another meeting this evening, and that we vote on the proposal before us. But I do appreciate Councillor Beccles did have his hand up, and his face on my screen looks like, well, don't go to vote yet. But, yeah, I don't have a question, Chair, and I apologise, but I just, you know, it's very rare that we get applications come before us for refusal. It's very rare. It's due diligence goes into every application, and I'm disappointed that we're in the position we're in, but I can't see any way out here, and I don't even see a way out for deferment. And I would normally say, yeah, let's go to deferment, give you an opportunity. I don't actually see it. And so that's my concerns. We really need to think about what it is that we're presenting to committee for us to be able to make informed decisions going forward.
Thank you, that's really helpful. James.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Carly, and everyone else for their contribution. I just want to commend officers on page 142 about the heritage of the area.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that we talk about a lot, but it's not something that's obviously emphasised. I think the heritage of Newham is very important, and the fact that we've got this former site of an abbey is something to be protected, and I think we should make more of that through, or bring that out through more applications and other reports. So commend officers for that, especially about protecting it. I was struck by the officer's presentation about the email that was sent on the 30th of August about off-site payment. There was no response to that. Normally, you know, we expect, you know, I guess applicants are quite keen to impress upon members and the council that, you know, they're willing to get the applications through, therefore they're willing to bend and have some leverage or compromise. And if you're not going to deliver affordable housing, and you know, so to sound like a broken record, it all comes back down to affordable housing with us, because
that's our need.
You know, we continuously have residents coming to us. You can read the news reports, you can see the articles, you can see the ombudsman, and it's one of the pressing things for us. About off-site payment, and I'm sure, you know, some contrition in that area, whether it was a lowball figure or any sort of figure, but to completely ignore the officer's email just shows us like contempt, really, that, you know, affordable housing, the market's not there, therefore it's Stratford. And Stratford has a huge figure on it. People are building, it's a massive development zone. The chair and I sit on the LDC, we know what Stratford's worth.
Yeah.
And you know, even projecting what you might sell at a private rate, you could have made a future projection and said, you know, if we sell this amount by square foot, we'd make this contribution, therefore you can deliver off-site affordable housing elsewhere. We haven't seen that. It's not in the report. You didn't respond to the email. And again, affordable housing is key to us. Had you tailored that, maybe I might look towards Councillor Masters and say, perhaps deferment is the way to go, and to give you another chance. But you know, it's 3 months down the line, no email unless it's in the inbox. You know, affordable housing is key for us, and I hope if you do come back again, and it is third time, that you really do listen to officers, and you do make a concerted effort to try and get this over the line. We do need housing, but we do need a mix of housing, and private is not the only way to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm mindful of Carlene's words about moving to a vote, but I also know that we are joined by Richard Partington, who was on the design review panel for this application. Richard, I wonder if I could just perhaps bring you in briefly to talk to us about the feedback that the DRP had. Obviously, as a committee, we're really keen applicants engage with the DRP, so it's quite right that we should take good account of your expertise.
Chair, thank you. So DRP saw versions of this scheme in January 21, and then I had a chair's workshop in June of 22. And you can imagine that the first question we ask in design terms would be to have some understanding of why the applicant thinks a very tall, large footprint building is the most appropriate solution for this site. And you could see from the presentation, all of the surroundings are quite well established historical two-story terraces. So there has to be some clear reason, some design thinking, and some urban design benefit for a building that is so incongruous or out of keeping with its surroundings. And what we generally find in design review is if there is a building where perhaps there's some discussion about the height, differences of opinion on what is appropriate, that we would then look for some outstanding design features that justify, perhaps some extra stories. So that might be, some contribution to public realm, a building that forms or encloses an important public space or creates a new public space. It might be, an outstanding vision of urban living that really does produce proper family homes in a dense development, or it might be, some compensating affordable housing contribution. But I have to say that although some aspects of the scheme have changed, that central question is why this is the best solution for the site hasn't been answered.
That's really useful, thank you. With that in mind, I'd like to suggest to members that we move to the vote. I just give a moment for Chloe to share the recommendation slide with us, please.
It's a shame.
Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and resolve to agree the reasons for refusal to refer this application to the Mayor of London as a stage 2 referral, and number 3 as set out on the slide, which I shan't read. Can I ask those who are voting to refuse this application to indicate, please? That is also unanimous. Thank you very much. That concludes the first of today's Strategic Development Committee meetings. Our next meeting is also today at 6 p.m. I'm just going to check there aren't any other items on the agenda. Yes, date of next meeting, 17th of October, today at 6 p.m. Thank you very much.